start recording?
Session's being recorded.
Fantastic. Thank you all for coming today. It is 1:05. My name is John Martin. Welcome to the Active Teaching Lab. If you've been here before in the online or remote version of this, you will know that it's all about you. We try to be responsive to your needs and your concerns. So we have an activity sheet that we have created. In that activity sheet, we have all kinds of great advice, I guess, or suggestions on how to use and why feedback is important, and some ways to give it to your students. Today we're talking about specifically in Canvas. I want to sort of use this first few minutes and highlight the importance of feedback in teaching and learning. And add sort of as a disclaimer, when we talk about feedback, there's really, I think one of the things that I initially think of is giving feedback to students, right? They do an assignment, they do some sort of a activity, they get a quiz, and they need to have feedback, right? Because if they don't have feedback, they can take their wrong information and go down some, I call them garden paths, which are nice to wander down, but they don't actually get you anywhere farther along in solving problems because they end up sort of where you started beforehand. So as humans and certainly in school, we need the feedback, correct feedback, to know that we are headed in the right direction, that our strategies are correct and will be fruitful and constructive as we face other problems. So that giving feedback to students is a really big part. The other side of that, then that we're not really going to talk about today too much, unless you want to, in which case put it in the activity sheet in the question table here, and we will, for sure. The other side is getting feedback from students on how we're doing, how they are responding to the activities that we've created for them. Are they getting it? Are they struggling with it? Is it important to them? Are we reaching them? Are we helping them be motivated? If you want to talk about that, and it's super important to do that, add it in the table here, and we will. For the most part, we're going to be talking about using Canvas and giving our students feedback. As way of introduction, I want to do make a couple of points here and sort of step through the importance of feedback in teaching and learning. There's a couple of things that I came up with here, and there are more. There's more than these 6 things, but remember that in effective learning, effective teaching, we need to empower our students, right? We need to make this about them, and that's hard to do individually, but if there are hooks that we can put into our content where I'll say, oh yeah, I want to use that for my dream and goal, my passions, interests, whatever we have, that's great. We need to empower them. We need to give them good problems, and not just problems that we think are good, but problems that they think are good as well. They need to explore those problem spaces. And as they explore the problem spaces, in order to understand the underlying systems, they need to see both the success state and the failure state. And if they don't see both states, they don't have a full enough understanding of what that system is like, right? So part of the feedback is we need them to fail. So we need to build in fail, and we need, when they fail, that they recognize that they are failing, that this is a fail state. And when they succeed, they need to recognize that they're succeeding. So that's important. You've got to have both successes and failures. The sooner we give them that feedback, the sooner that we can strengthen those neural pathways that they're building, right? Every time they revisit it and it's wrong, it gets stronger. Every time they revisit it and it's right, it gets stronger. So we want it to be right. We want it to be correct. We want their patterns to be correct. It needs to be specific, right? So they can't just say, you're doing great, or no, that's wrong. They need to know why it's great. Like, what strategy did they use? Sometimes they don't even know why they got things right. They got things right. And it's good to know that they got things right, but help them, remind them, reinforce why they did it right. You got it right because you must have seen, and then here's the trick. Here's that. And that leads us to contextual, right? Why is it important that I got it right? How does what I did today connect with what we did last week, connect with what we're going to do in the future? If they don't have that context, if they can't sort of see the roadmap of where you're leading them, they're going to start to think that we're just doing busy work because my instructor hates us and wants us to do busy work because they're mean, right? So let them understand why they're doing the things and where, and you can do that in feedback. This is sort of an important one. It should be thoughtful. There's Jesse and a couple of other researchers have looked at when students feel like they're being overly surveyed or controlled, or if they feel that it's part of a competition and they don't want to be competing right now, it can actually undermine their intrinsic motivation. And at that point, it's all about just getting the grade. And when students do things just for the grade, they can do an okay job. But better if they're really passionate about it, right? You did not get to the position that you're in because you just wanted to get a good grade. You probably passionate about your field and really got into it and found some problems that you were really excited to dig into and figure out, and some colleagues and folks who appealed to you and felt a kinship. Help them get that rather than that you must do it this way. I'm watching you, don't make any mistakes, or you've got to do better than your other student. They already feel enough of that. And then feedback needs to help them study, right? And remember, these are, most of them are traditional college age students. We are getting some non-traditional college age students who've already figured out time management and good study skills. A lot of them are coming without that. They've had a very structured situation in their K-12 work with instructors that constantly remind them, this is what you need to do by tomorrow. Did you start on it? How are you doing on that? And we need to sort of shift that from that pedagogy, right? The sort of control of child andragogy, which is this, they're adult learners. They need to be self-determined, self-controlled, self-disciplined folks. So whenever you can give them feedback that sort of gives them hints on how to do that, and positives for doing it well, and constructive feedback on how to do it better, that's another way to give feedback. So those are sort of the initial thoughts I have on giving feedback. Down below the table, we've got several different very practical ways of giving feedback in Canvas. So we talk about Canvas quizzes, automatic feedback. There's a way to give automatic feedback for every Canvas quiz question. And that is a thing that I did not think was possible until I looked into it this week. And it's actually not a easy feature. I gave it a medium rating here on the activity sheet because you have to build a question after every question and then give one question at a time. We had an active teaching lab several years ago on giving audio feedback for students, and I really loved this because when you speak and when the students are listening to your voice, they can hear your inflection, they can hear your tone, they can hear a lot of those nonverbals that they don't see when you type in comments to them, right? Remember how you felt getting the red ink comments in K-12 perhaps, and you'd think, oh, the red pen, it's so cruel. If you're explaining to the students, hey, I really like what you did here, but I'm a little bit concerned about this second point that you made, they can hear that in your voice, and it softens it. They know from listening to you that you're not being, the mean grader, that you actually care about them, and you are giving feedback on that. There's a way to send messages to students via the Canvas inbox from the gradebook, and that's kind of a nice, simplistic, but a good thing to do. We can provide all kinds of things in our assignments and in our activities. We can give papers, we can give rubrics, we can give checklists, we can give past examples of student papers that others have done in previous classes with their permission, of course. And we can have the students in the current class share their own work that they're doing and their own examples. And this is kind of neat if you can give them multiple means, right? Multiple examples. If you just give them one example, you know that they're going to use that template and they're going to follow it as closely as possible because that's the safe thing to do. And they want to hedge their bets and not take risks because their grade isn't on it. If you give them more than one, if you give them 2 or 3, now they've got 3 things and they have to say, this one works better than this one for me, or this one doesn't work for me at all. I hate doing that activity. But you can give them a variety of ways to approach them. The other thing for you as an instructor, if you only give them one, you're going to grade the same paper over and over and over again. It can get kind of boring. Now, there are some times when you want the students to do exactly follow this sort of recipe or checklist, in which case, if it needs to be that exact, only give them that one, right? Because you do want them to follow precisely. But that doesn't give them, that's a little bit more of that control that we were talking about and less about letting them explore their own understanding or learning, the constructivist approach. I've got a controversial feedback statement here that peer feedback is better than your feedback, and I know that it's not always better than your feedback because sometimes they give each other wrong information, right? But they're smart students, right? They got to this point because they've demonstrated that they're just about at that level. If they put their heads together, they can figure it out. And even if they don't figure it all out, they might be able to give each other 80% of the feedback that you would have needed to give them, and then you only need to give them 20% more. If they can fix 80% of each other's mistakes, that's great. That's less work for you to do. The other thing is they will speak to each other they'll find the voices that make sense to them for each other. I'm not saying this very well. The easier way to say that, you're not cool like they are, right? We're too old. We don't speak the language of our students anymore. There are obvious exceptions, obviously. There are a lot of really hip people in the activity in our participants right now. The other thing is you're too smart, right? Like you live. You're too smart. When you explain things, you've already put these complex concepts together and steps together into certain processes that you look at the whole process as one thing. And then the students look at that process and they're like, I have no idea how to do that. So you need to sort of unpack that. And oftentimes the best people to unpack that are the ones who just learned and just recently put it together. So those peers that have just figured something out, if they can explain, this is how I figured it out, step, 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 instead of you saying, here's the big process, let's see if I remember how to pull it apart when I learned it 20 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever. And then teaching is learning. Giving the students the opportunity to teach other causes them to rephrase and think, well, how do I understand this? What do I know? What do I not know? How can I say it in a way that will make sense to my peer, my colleague? And that's fantastic cognitive work. If you think of Bloom's taxonomy, or affective work, where they start saying, well, I can't explain it if I don't care about it, if I don't value it. So we want them to do that. All right, I think I've talked about all of that. I've got a thing on the Wisconsin experience. Feedback is fantastic for empathy and humility, right? We need empathy, we need humility in order to take feedback. We need empathy in order to give feedback that doesn't sound arrogant or cruel. We need to be relentlessly curious about how did our feedback hit our student, right? And the students need to know, what can I do better? What did I do wrong? How can I get better? That requires relentless curiosity. Intellectual confidence. I'm going to say something. I hope it's the right way. And purposeful action. Anytime that we can connect with the students' dreams, that helps. So there's the activity sheet. There's more stuff in there down below. This is sort of on a broader topic. We've got all, if you are liked that thing about empowering learners with good problems, to explore good problems that reveal systems, I've got a lot more Canvas-specific stuff down here that I just pasted in on the bottom. All right. What I would like to do now that we've sort of warmed up, I'd like to give you 15 minutes in groups. We've got 35, so I'd like to give you breakout groups. I've got a link to a slides, the structured small group activity at the top of the activity sheet, and I will copy the link URL and put it in for you in the chat here as well. I hope it's the right set of slides. And let's see if we can get 5 people per group, so that's 7 groups. I expect that a couple of people will drop out. Moderators, you can join in a group if you'd like. What I will do is I will be on the slides in the background, and thank you, Karen, and I will add comments to and jump in sort of on the outside. Now, this is kind of a neat trick because if you have table activities and you wander around 2 tables in your face-to-face classroom, as soon as the students see you coming, they always shut up, right? They stop talking. They can be laughing and having a good time, and then you go to their table and they're like, uh-oh, teacher's looking. What do I do now? So being able to just jump in on the back of a slide and comment, you can see what they're doing, but you can't hear them speaking, so you're not quite as intrusive. All right, so Karen Spader, are we good of the groups? In the activity slides, I just want you to, I've got instructions on the top of them. Share your favorite and most effective ways to give feedback in Canvas, any challenges or frustrations that you have, and then if you have, if you can help one of your group members with that, that'd be great. So I just want you to start sort of warming up and get you thinking about what we're talking about and giving feedback to each other. And then we're going to come back and we're going to put some of the unresolved things in the activity sheet in that table. Okay?
All right, I have groups of 5 and 4 ready.
And we'll give you 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I'll count down from 5 at the last minute.
All right, here we go.
6. Thank you, Karen.
Sure. I can stay in the main room and move anybody who comes into a room.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'll pop into group 5. I see the little door, so oops. So I should be all right. Head into 5.
And things that I put into the everyone chat, I'll see for a moment, correct?
They do. It depends on how easily,
They're-
based on if they have their notifications in. But yeah, I mean, they have access to it. Yes.
How are you doing today, Karen? Just had a meeting with Sid, so
I'm doing well, thanks.
how's PTO going?
The next run is November 10th. So I canceled the October group because there was only 3 people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but fine.
If you'd ever like help with that, I'm happy to show up and add. I wasn't sure. I shared this with Karen Skiba as well for Teach Online. Um, I'm not ever sure how much I should be at these things, but and I didn't actually know how much time I'd have this fall, but I'm finding that I do have a little bit extra time, and I'm willing to jump in, but I don't. I also know that whenever I do, I always have things to say, and I don't know how I need to. I don't know how often I need to say those things.
Sure, well, great. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. I will let you know.
Right. Heidi put down that she likes the Canvas rubric. That's good.
Where's that?
That's on number 4,
Like in one of the groups?
group 4, slide 4.
Oh, okay. Ah, all right. Cool. We're seeing
Experience of to
some
create
typing
them.
go.
That's what I was going
Well,
to say.
that's true.
Yep.
Oh, that's also Heidi. Yep. But it's a good question. Is it worth the effort? Does it pay off?
I'm going to see if I can find the. There's a tool in Canvas that we've enabled for making rubrics easier. seen more frustrations than positives in 3. Oh, group 5's going. Got a lot of positives. Hello, Amanda. We're working on an activity sheet. Sorry, in activity slides. Let me just show you the
It's
slide.
1:35. Don't you, are we about
Oh,
ending,
yeah,
nearing the end anyway?
we are about ending. Yeah, should I do a countdown?
Yeah. I myself was distracted reading people's points on the slides. Hello, Javier. We're about to end groups, so we're just going to leave you here in the main room.
Hello, Javier. And we're coming back. I can just click on it, so I can do that myself. Yay.
Yep.
Great. Welcome back, folks. And welcome to Javier and Amanda as they joined us. So I get some quick feedback on the breakout groups. I have noticed that whenever I send people into breakout groups, our participant list starts to dwindle because some people just don't want to go to breakout groups. They just sometimes want to listen. For those of you who weathered through those breakout groups, what are your thoughts on that? How can I make it a little bit more appealing? Is there any way that I can keep people from trying to leave right away? Go ahead, Renee.
I would just say if you designate a facilitator or you post the questions, it would go a lot faster. We had some hesitation at the beginning until somebody reminded me what the question was. And the facilitator doesn't have to really do more than just say, what about you? What about you? Also,
Right.
I wish I could have seen the people's names longer because I couldn't say, hey, what do you think about it? And I could only see their picture, not their name. So that's my suggestions.
Very good. So having the having pictures and names and somebody to say, hey, what about you? Good. Any other thoughts, ideas? It's that first minute, now knowing where to start. So being a little bit more overt. Like I had the questions at the top of the activity of the slides, but what if I had put those in the chat itself, just sort of as a reminder, like that. But Cindy.
I would say you put the questions on the activity slide, but you didn't tell us what the question was. So in a way, if you right off the bat, in a way, make the case that it's useful. Say, I'm going to put you into breakout groups because here's what I want you to talk about and get out of it. And then if I say, oh, that's something I would want to get out of it, I will stay around. But if I am kind of not sure and I've got other things to do, I might just skip out.
Yeah, I hear you. That makes sense. Very good. Duncan, yeah, I should put a rubric on a link to a rubric for every activity slide there. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Hey, basically, I've been in the group's very random, and sometimes, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a student really here, as you know, part of your actual Delta class. And when it's a bunch of us students, we kind of all stare at each other, but cluelessly. Like, for example, today we had Renee, and you know, people really knew what they were talking about, and so I learned a lot. I might not have been able to give and contribute as much as I would have liked, but I learned a hell of a lot. So if we could somehow just mix it up with like experience and experience, that would be awesome.
Very good. All right, I just wanted some quick feedback on that because it's a frustration that I keep running into in all of these online sessions. There's got to be a way to crack this, this holy grail or whatever, but I don't know what it is yet. So I keep on learning. All right. Well, what did we learn from that? I was looking through the slides. I saw a lot of favorite things. I saw a lot of folks that have some challenges and frustrations. And there's, I guess, two ways that we can do this. I was initially thinking that I would just have everybody. We've already got some things in here. So we'll do that. The takeaways that you have not respond. I'm having trouble talking today. Apologies. Were there any unresolved questions or thoughts or challenges, big ideas in your that you'd like to share out and make sure that we absolutely address? If so, please unmute and talk about what your group did. Or go ahead and type it in the table on the activity sheet here that I've got going first. And hearing nothing, I will go ahead and we'll just start talking about these, the ones that are on the activity sheet here, because I feel like those are the ones that you came in wanting the answers for. So let's talk about that. All right, so the first one, encouraging modeling effective peer feedback responses for students. What do the students need? Do they need models? Do they need examples? What kind of training do they need? Just for reading for peer feedback again. And what language and support can we provide? On the activity sheet, group 4, there's the writing across the curriculum. Is how to use and build rubrics effectively. One of the things in their book, they've got this whole thing of examples. They will talk about, I don't have an exact link, but somewhere on the writing across the curriculum, they do a really good job of explaining how students can give peer feedback to each other, including model language on how to, for the students to do things like think of the ideas and not just, the punctuation, bigger ideas. And so they've got some really good information on that. There is a link to the writing across the curriculum. I don't know if I can find it. Their resource guide or source book, called the source book. And they've got a whole, there it is. I'm going to put this in the activity sheet on that. There it is. See that source book, and there's a chapter in there on peer feedback that is an excellent resource on how to do that and advise your students on that. That's great. All right, my comments disappearing speed grader. Oh no, the blipping out. The best way that I know to sort of get around that is to use I use Google Docs whenever I want to give feedback, because I feel like that's a lot. It feels like that saved a lot more. I certainly know that, and I've gotten feedback that when we ask our students to do assignments where they type into the field in Canvas, if something happens, whatever they started typing into that field as an assignment disappears, right? And they've got to retype it in. Typing into forms online is not great, and that includes the feedback stuff here. But yeah, they're supposed to save, but if they don't, I don't know, think about another outside tool. Hopefully Canvas keeps getting better on that. All right, what effect has my feedback have on them? This is one of the classic questions. We spend our Sunday afternoons, with a glass of wine, typing in all this fantastic feedback for our students, and they never read it, or we feel like they never read it. There's no evidence that they've read it because nothing's changed. So one of the big thoughts that I have for this is, do not give them heavy-duty feedback on their final assignment, activity, paper, whatever. Give them feedback on the rough draft. And then as part of the assignment, say, take my feedback that I've given you, and respond to it. Tell me why you're doing, how you're adding it, or addressing it. Or if you're not addressing it, that's fine. Tell me why you're not addressing it. You can have the power to make changes or not. But if your feedback has an effect on how they do their next graded assignment, they will more likely read it. If it's just, you did a good assignment, now you're done, we're moving on to the next thing, why would they look at that? It's water under the bridge. So that's one idea. So you ask them to respond for a rough draft. Have them reflect on it, perhaps. Ooh, I like this idea of future-oriented language. I like that. That's great because we're tying into why it's important. Really good thoughts, Mike. Thanks. And then, of course, the students have to know to click on the view feedback, which is sort of a hidden link in SpeedGrader. So you help them know where that is as well. Good. Signaling priority level of feedback. All right, yeah, this is really good. On the Writing Center, we'll often say, don't give them feedback on the grammar if your course is not about grammar. Or do it only in the first paragraph. Or just say, here's one example that you do often in your paper. This is a better way to do it, or you should look at other alternative ways of phrasing below forever. But if you spend in your time correcting every single punctuation or 2 spaces between sentences or whatever, it's a waste of your time and there's no need for you to do the work for them. But if you can just give them one example of it and say, this goes on, you do this a lot, or you repeat this, that helps. Another really good idea, don't grade them so much on the grammar. You know, maybe grammar's only 1 point or 2 points, but your ideas are worth 5 and 10 or whatever points, more points. The lower points for the less important things. I want to stop there and give you folks a opportunity to raise your hand and remind you that you can at any point raise your hand and add your thoughts or ask some more questions, follow-up questions as we go through these. I don't want to just sort of bulldoze through these without any getting your feedback, by the way. All right. How to balance providing. Yes.
One thing that says that in his feedback, he actually sometimes puts in a send me an email with this word, a particular phrase word, as a way to get extra points to help encourage that, you know, searching the feedback for that kind of to reinforce getting it. I thought it was a brilliant idea from Juan.
Yeah, that's a very good idea because you're giving them, it's almost like a password, right? That lets them into or lets them know, lets you know that they know they've got it. On, go ahead.
Yeah, I thank you for mentioning that. Yes, it's done specifically in large section course. I have 120 students, and I do automatic feedback, kind of just anticipating whether they're going to answer or not in a graded survey. So, but I don't know if they have read that feedback because they already have been graded. They already have the 2 points. So at the last thing I tried to do first a survey, asking them, do you read the feedback? And I got a 60%. I say yes. And then I did this scavenger hunt in which at the end of my feedback there was send me an email and in the subject put this word. And I get 20 out of 120, which again is a little bit concerning. And I'm trying to think about ideas of how to turn feedback into an assignment, kind of. how to build from feedback somehow, how to engage with them. And again, I have a lot of students, so it has to have some component that is automatic, or that it doesn't involve me being on the computer my whole life. And so
right.
that's the background to that kind of activity experiment that I'm trying to do with automatic feedback.
Yeah, and with large classes, this is where, and Karen Spader, I'm kind of looking at you here. This is where, and Karen Skib as well, and others who have done peer-to-peer feedback, this is where you can harness your students to give feedback to each other. Again, it's impossible for you to give good qualitative feedback and have that sort of attention, that focused attention on so many students individually, right? But if I'm a student, it's easy for me to have that focused attention on 1 or 2 other students. right? So I would be a lot more, I'd be able to give deeper feedback as a student if I only had to give 1 or 2 other students than if I were an instructor giving 120 students feedback or more, right? That's just sort of a human condition. We can't focus that broadly on so many things. So it might be a great opportunity for you to dig into a little bit of that peer-to-peer feedback, some of the peer review on the earlier versions of their exams, papers, or whatever the assignments are.
Could
That
I
help?
comment on that, John?
Yes, thank you, Duncan, please. Peer
Yeah,
feedback, right?
just well, on not on the peer feedback, on the original quandary. I think probably I would hypothesize that a lot of students don't look at feedback because they know they got a good enough score and they don't want to listen to it, and that's great, right? So you're really dealing with, don't anticipate and everyone's going to read all your stuff. I don't want to hear I'm amazing or great or good job. I've heard that, I don't need that, right? But it's the students who are struggling with the assignment that need help, and that may be the 20% that it's actually asking. So what you're doing, so focusing in on the ones, not just generating the kind of automatic stuff or not worrying about it, but focusing on the ones who actually need it. And one of the things that I've just been trying this semester, which I mentioned here, I was clued into thinking about mastery of learning rather than just assessment. And so I've started a practice of, as I go through using SpeakGrader, if there's some serious deficiency, providing them an opportunity to resubmit and get more credit. So I'll give them some points, or maybe the rubric gives them some points, but it's not like end of story, let's move on to the next thing and not learn anything from this. So my comment will be, resubmit for more credit. That prompts them, and then I make an announcement to the class. I have looked at all this assignments for, whatever it is. Please see my feedback. To remind them that happened and that they should look for feedback and not go hunting around when they're so busy. So that seems to work pretty well. And the students who then, when I say resubmit, they do it. So I have a soft deadline, right? But of course, I'll go for the extra 50 points. I got a 50 on this and I'm ready to do more work. And in fact, they'll max it out generally.
Sure.
So
those points are important. Lane, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi. So one of the ideas I've heard from other people, and maybe this would help some of the situations we're talking about, certainly for Group 4, of how do we make sure how do we kind of help them see it? How do we make it actionable so something they can do that's focused on people that have the biggest needs, and how do we not spend so much time in front of the computer? One idea that might help some of those is providing general feedback in the announcement, right? So make an announcement to the class that, hey, I've reviewed all these papers, I've looked at them, and these are some of the main problems that I am seeing. I'm seeing these 4 or 5 main issues that are coming up over and over again. And that way, when you don't have to rewrite everything for each student over and over again, you can just provide that out to the group and say, hey, these are some of the main problems. These are some ways you can improve it. This is maybe where you can find it, or maybe we could redo assignment, whatever you want to take to the next level. But it's on the announcement. It's kind of front and center. They can kind of scan through that and say, oh, I only had a problem with point 3. I can kind of ignore the rest, but maybe I can look in to see where I can find out more information. And hopefully that saves us maybe a little bit of time because we're just putting it in one spot versus doing it over and over.
Yeah, and I've heard there's a business faculty who finds the big issues that many of your students are doing, so the patterns that they see, and he makes a video that he'll say, this week I saw on your assignments, here's the biggest issue that you collectively as a class saw or had. Here's the next one, here's the next one. And that way it's kind of it gives him feedback because he can see what the patterns are. He's sort of cognizant of that as he's making that video. But it also addresses sort of the main problems that people are having. You won't reach all of the students that way, of course, but you'll reach many of them. Very good. I'm curious about this one, the frictionless way to provide screencast feedback rather than video of my face. Can I show the video of the screen with a student report and audio from my mic right now it's many clicks. It's complicated. Do folks have thoughts on that? There's nothing in the on the answer side right now, and so I'm wondering. I'm sort of reaching out to you all if you have any good ideas for this.
Let's see, can't you upload? You can upload a movie right from the comments section. Yeah,
You can
that's
upload a movie.
just a matter of making a screencast. So that's operating system dependent. There are certainly solutions, proprietary, bot solutions, various screencast-o-matic, and blah 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 on Mac.
Screencastify, yeah.
But it's actually trivial to use QuickTime. If you just fire up QuickTime, and you can choose to record a part of the screen or not, and it just makes a screencast for you. So you could just click on it while you were in the canvas, make a window that picked out what you wanted to show, and then upload that to the comments. That would be it's maybe 3 clicks.
Good. And again, like in the activity sheet, when we talk about audio feedback, you don't have to do the screencast feedback necessarily, right? You can just have your audio and say, in paragraph 1, I like your third sentence, you've got this, you make this great point. So you don't need sort of a super complicated screencast for many of those issues. If it's a graphic problem or image-based thing, there might be times when you do want the screencast, in which case some of those third-party tools, Screencastify or QuickTime, as Duncan was saying, Altura Capture would let you do that. But again, it's not super simple, not super easy, definitely not frictionless. Yeah, maybe things are getting better though, right?
No, QuickTime really is frictionless.
Okay.
And that's available. You don't pay for that. That comes with the operating system.
All right. Use QuickTime. Unless you're on Windows, then use whatever Windows has. If you put feedback in the comment section instead of the notations of a document, how do you make sure your students read it? I think that it's a little bit more simple to do that, and it shows up in the speed grader because it's right there below there. I feel like it's right there below the rubric and such. And I love this comment as well. Require that they respond, and that way we'll have to. Okay, and our last thing, it's 1:59, so we're not going to have time to go through the slides. I apologize for that. Suggestions for the optimal number of students to crowdsource an ungraded assignment. Exam study sheet. Okay, yeah, 96 students and the 9 topics would be tough to evaluate, but 12 to 9 would be possible. Would you get an ungraded assignment crowdsourced? Will they participate with that if it's ungraded?
Yeah, that's the question.
I want secret sauce.
So this was me. I suggested Google Docs to the veterinary community, and so one of the virology instructors like, great, we'll do these study sheets, and then she started getting inundated with emails of students wanting her to check them, and so she's like, that's not what I want. And so I was like, how can we give some feedback that is not now my instructors getting inundated with check my Google Doc? So
yeah,
so some kind of feedback that. So they're asking for feedback, but now it's
right. And in a competitive school or if field, asking them to evaluate each other's might not work because if they're competing against each other, they might be like, "Yeah, you got it all right," and not evaluate it honestly. But I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, my unintended Google Doc suggestion, more work for my instructors. So
yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any ideas. That would be great to add that to it. And it's 2 o'clock. It's after 2 o'clock. Thank you all for sharing your hour with me and for giving your thoughts on the activity sheets and in the smaller groups. Those slides will stay available and the activity sheet will stay available. So if you find that holy grail of feedback, And we found one in QuickTime already today. Please continue to add those answers. That would be great. And I will stick around for the next couple of minutes to answer any questions that you might have as people filter out. And those of you who are in my Leveraging Technology to Teach class, I will meet you back here at 10. And thank you all again for joining.